Welcome back to 420 Chief, where my goal is to give veterans a platform to share their powerful stories of healing, break stigmas, raising awareness, and showing how plant medicine has changed lives. Today, I'm excited to introduce back to the show a good friend of mine and brother who I deployed to Kuwait with back in 2010 through 2011, Scooter. Welcome back to the show. How you been, brother?
I've been doing pretty good, pretty good. So, how things been treating you?
Really good. It's been a crazy past 8 months since we first talked, hasn't it?
It has. It has been crazy and uplifting and absolutely wonderful.
Perfect. Well, today, the overview of our discussion, we're going to be talking about mental health, pain management, cannabis for healing, and fighting the veteran suicide crisis. So, with that said, let's reflect on the past year. So, how's it been going? What were your, would you say, were your major highlights over the past year?
I've had a few of them. I believe that the biggest highlight I would speak to is my change in outlook for my future and becoming comfortable with that. Um, Processing. I know we talk about this word a lot. So I've been really focusing on processing through past trauma, whether it was service connected, not service connected, didn't really matter. I took that barrier down the best I could so that I could focus on just the healing part of it. Um, that I would say has probably been my biggest number one positive of the last 8 months is going through that processing. And by doing so, every time I process one more thing, it allows me to go to that next step, that next level, I guess you could say. Um, Working at getting awareness out since I have been able to kind of process mine and I'm still healing. I think we all will always continue to heal, but I'm in a place now where I really want to get that message out to others and to be a resource to people when they feel like maybe they're in a tight spot.
Yeah, I've seen such a tremendous change in you since our first interview. Since then, we've actually met up in person twice. One time I drove to Washington State with Baby Spike and Stryker, and we hung out for a few days. And then I saw you the second time in October in the beautiful state of Mississippi at the second Sunny Side of Freedom meetup. And I can tell you, in keeping in touch with you and seeing everything that you've got going on and how you're helping people, you've come a long way, especially with your mental awareness, you know? So I'm proud of you. Congratulations for working through that.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate that. It's still a little bit strange when I think of the changes that have happened in the last year. Um, you have been such an integral part of that for me, whether it be a sounding board, giving advice, just being there. I mean, that has helped tremendously. Um, my journey with cannabis, my journey through meditation, all of it has come together. And like I said, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. I think that meetup in Mississippi really came at just the right time for me because when I came back from that, I felt even more inspired because I was there around other people and we were able to feel, see, and experience what that looks like when others are getting help.
Yeah, and I think that the most powerful thing about that is, with these meetups, we meet people that we connect with, that we feel that sense of camaraderie and trust with, and we get to open up and talk and exchange stories and whatnot. And I think that the power behind that is just in talking through some of these things with people and finding a place where we're comfortable enough to do so. Because I watched you at the meetup and you had met up with 4 Points Ranch and you guys really hit it off in a big way, from the window to the dance around the fire and all of that. But I thought it was interesting when you were when he would tell stories, you would tell stories, and come to find out we weren't that far away
No.
geographically from one another at the same time. So that was cool. But the fact that since then we've maintained these relationships and found people that we can talk through things with is I can't say enough at how important that is, especially for veterans, because oftentimes we don't talk to anyone. We self-isolate, we lose that sense of camaraderie, we lose touch with our brothers and sisters in arms, and what I've just witnessed myself with you was when we first started talking before I came to visit you, you were struggling quite a bit mentally. You had plans, but you were hurting, you weren't getting good sleep, and so I think it was really good for both of us to be able to open up and talk about some of the things that we had going on, what we've experienced, and catching back up because we hadn't spoken in 12 years
Yep.
at that point. And now we've met up a couple of times. We've even um, I joined with Sunnyside of Freedom to start a 501c called Break Stigmas, to where we do just this. We provide platforms where veterans can get to know one another, get comfortable enough to share their stories, what's going on, and they make these relationships, these friendships. And like with us, we hadn't spoken in 12 years, but we still had that sense of camaraderie because we'd served together, we'd lived together, we've been through everything together, life and death and danger and you name it. And it was really great reacquainting and then also meeting these new veterans at the meetups and being able to talk about things because every one of us that, we still keep in touch. Um, you can see how that's helped out. You can see how everyone has a plan and a mission and is self-improving so much just because they were able to find a place where they could talk things out and didn't feel judged.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest part of that is being in an atmosphere that there is no judgment, regardless of what the conversation may be. Um, I do feel like having um, had more encounter and experience under Break Stigmas with Sunny and her openness and the heart that she has, I feel like now, and I've talked about this yesterday with someone. While I probably won't go into great detail when there is someone outside of that veteran community, um, I at least know I gotta communicate some to start getting it out to where then the next encounter that maybe a civilian has with another veteran, they don't feel that they can't talk, right? And it does get a little bit jumbled. Like I can sit down with you and there's nothing that's off topic, nothing. But like you said, we deployed together, we went through life and death, living, everything. So even 12 years, the first time on the phone, it was like yesterday was the day we had talked. Um, but that's what I needed at that time. I was in a dark place. Um, just not too far before that, I had truly considered that being here on earth was not where I needed to be anymore. I was packing all that stuff around. Um, and so I was just starting that healing journey when we started talking. And then to find out that you and I had kind of these parallel things happening over the course of 12 years, that was kind of a little freaky, but at the same time, I didn't feel alone anymore. Um, the next step on that was, and this is a weird one, but telling someone that you love them, that was so difficult, man, so difficult. And if you hadn't led the way with that, I probably still wouldn't be in the position I'm in. I'm much more comfortable. I want to make sure I don't feel awkward anymore. Every time we hang up, I tell you that I love you because I want you to know it. I feel good about it. I hope it makes you feel good, but you do the same thing, right? So we've had some changes, and that meetup being together and around other people, the comfort was there. I knew I knew how you would respond to situations. You knew how I would respond to situations. I think both of us were able to relax a little bit, hitting it off with 4 points, realizing that even though you loaded everything for us and you were so good with navigation, you didn't have a fucking clue where we were in the desert. That just cracked me up when you're like, "Oh yeah, you're much better at geography." I'm like, "Brother, you're the one that loaded every one of our, you know,
PIMS.
systems." Yeah, the PIMs
Yeah,
were
and
in
our
from
system.
you.
Yeah, I just never really cared where we were at. I think the less I knew, the safer I felt. That's what
Yeah,
I've
I can see
figured
that.
out. So what would you say, I mean, it's been a lot. What would you say were your biggest lessons learned over this past year? I know we had talked about, just open communication and being vulnerable to talk to somebody else about what you're going through, or maybe just saying, "Hey, man, I need some help." You don't always have to say, "Help me," and help looks different. Sometimes it's a laugh, sometimes it's just lending an ear. But reflecting on the change that you talk about from last year to now, what would you say was your greatest lesson learned?
That I guess it kind of sums it up and it's a little cliche, but I truly believe the it's okay to not be okay. Even now, going through a healing journey, um, there are days where I just feel blah. And instead of beating myself up on that and looking at all the things I didn't do, I look at the fact that I made some sort of success. It doesn't really matter what that was, whether it was today I got up, I didn't hurt as much as yesterday, but I just don't feel super motivated to do a lot. Maybe I'll read. So I don't beat myself up. I think my biggest success this year has been I don't beat myself up for making a mistake because I always wanted to strive for perfection. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't still push for it, but if I don't attain perfection first go around, I say, well, that's okay. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit, but I'll take a lesson learned from where it didn't happen and then go to that next level. So I think that's for me probably one of the biggest things is I've stopped beating myself up because it wasn't doing any good. It was making me feel worse.
Yeah, well, they do say perfect practice makes perfect. And that
Yeah.
means going all in with practice consistently. Like if I wanted to learn to play the guitar, I would practice it every day consistently. And in time, I would get good. I'm not good because I'm not consistent with it. So I'm proud of you for acknowledging that. And that's a great lesson. And that kind of rolls right into the next topic I wanted to discuss, which was kind of the veteran mindset working through pain. And you and I had a phone conversation. You told me a story about a warrant that I'd like for you to share if you can. But it really resonated with me and it clicked in my head. Like we'd mentioned before, we oftentimes don't ask for help or we don't tell people about, hey, I'm hurting or hey, I need help with this. We hold it in until it's too late. And will you share that story for our listeners? Because that really hit home for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very honored to do so. Um, I'd like to kind of lay the groundwork for those who maybe haven't experienced it but are watching today. And this will resonate for you, and you know who said it. Um, your mentor hammered this home to us, and that is, are you hurt or are you injured? Because we plan when we're doing training exercises, field X, so on and so forth. There's a plan, and in that plan, we may have this many people who get hurt. We plan for hurt. We don't want injury, but if it happens, maybe that's part of where it's at. So our mindset becomes, are you hurt or are you injured? Now, if you're hurt, so is everybody else. Your back's hurting, your shoulders are hurting, everything's pounding. When will this end? But why say anything? Because everyone's going to continue to push through. Now, if you're injured, that's different. You go to the hospital. That's what that's for. So now we fast forward, and um, an individual I had in Big Navy was a warrant officer, I believe retired CWO4, phenomenal man. Um, his last year in service, had a knee and I believe his hip both were kind of blown out. Um, he came home, got surgery, finished that. He put in for his retirement, signed his retirement package, and then he calls me one day and says, "Can you take me to my QTC appointment?" Sure, Gunner, I'll take you.
And that's the appointment that the VA sets, just for those that don't know, to evaluate, the disability that you are claiming.
Correct. Yep. So I said, "Yeah, I'll go with you. You know, I'll drive." So I drive him to an appointment, and it was a range of motion. So he's trying to lean down and touch his toes, and he hangs for a little bit, and then goes a little more, and a little bit more, and then I see a tear start to run out of this man's eye, and I'm like, "What hell? I didn't even think that warrant officers were able to cry. Like, are you serious right now?" And he stood back up, and he had a good doctor who stopped and said, "Did that hurt?" He goes, "It's okay. I can complete this." Well, the doctor says, "That's not the objective here. We need to see, you need to let me know when it hurts. And is that the point that it hurts without medication, without pushing, so on and so forth? Please redo this." And so Gunner did redo it and he stopped when it hurt, which was three quarters less than what he had done. And the doc said, "That's what we need to know." Now that registered at the time, but not hugely. And then an event happened just in the last 2 weeks where I had a conversation with someone. Um, and I said, "Hey, make sure you remember this." And they said, "Oh, well, when I have the medications, I don't know if YouTube cares or not, so I'm not going to name the medications, but they were narcotics for pain control. If I have that, I can go part way." And I said, "No, stop. Get out of that mindset. We're not mission." I don't want to say that. That's not right. We are still mission oriented, but our mission doesn't mean that we have to destroy our bodies any further than we already have. And so we went through the topic of why do you get a VA disability rating, which is not the same as if you got a Social Security disability insurance rating. That's based on your ability to even be employed. Our rating is something that we did earn as we went through, and it's looking at if you had never served, where would your functioning be? If your functioning's lower because of your service, that's where that rating comes in. So no, don't push yourself to tears and pain, and you can't move for 3 days after you go to the doctor. The mission, and you said it best, you're not competing with anyone, because the only person you'll compete with at your appointment is you, and you don't want to win that one. If it hurts, you need to stop. It's okay now, folks. It's okay, brothers and sisters. We can say it hurts. It's acceptable, and we have to be honest with ourselves.
And I think you said it from at the beginning of this was, are you hurt or are you injured? And we learn to work through the pain to where it's just, I hurt all the time and I'm still functional. I'm still mission critical, essential when I'm hurt. But when I'm injured is when something finally snaps. And that's what we are trained to wait for, is to
Yep.
work through the pain and until it becomes an injury. And hopefully it doesn't. But I think that when you told that story, it really hit with me when I was getting my evaluations with QTC for the VA and realized I was pushing myself so hard to pass a test still. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Because
a
what's
that's
number two, brother? What's number two? That's the first loser. So
yeah.
everything we do, our mind says, "I'm going to pass the test and I'm going to get 100%." Well, that's that's detrimental to our quality of life, and it becomes detrimental physically, which will lead to the detriment in our mental state. Sorry,
Absolutely.
you said that
And
and I was like, "Yeah."
I think it's important to talk about, and I think it's important for people to hear it because that's how you raise awareness is showing people that it's okay to talk about. And you've learned over the past year, like we started off with, that, when you find someone or a platform where you're comfortable enough to talk about it, it helps. And then you find resources along the way and people to hold you accountable to help you get better, so to speak, so that you're not just living in the hurt until you're injured, just waiting on injury. So thank you for sharing that story. And I would like to discuss your cannabis journey for the past 8 months because I know when we had first talked, you were still testing out gummies, and I think you had a vape pen.
Hmm.
So I would like for you to talk a little bit more about your method of consumption and your schedule with that and how it helps you, what it helps you with, etc.
Yeah, and I thank you for that because for me, I moved around in different consumption ways when I was trying to find what would work for me. And as we talked even, a year ago, my biggest issue was sleep. I just didn't sleep. Um, and what they had me taking was kind of frightening. Sleepwalking became an issue, which is something I never had in 52 years of life. Um, so I really was focusing very heavy on the medicinal side of that. And so that's what I will speak to, because that's what works for me. And what I love most about what you put out is it's not for everybody. Yeah, start slow, but find what works for you because what works for you isn't the same that works for me. So I did find out over the course of time and talking with you and then using strains for pains to remind me when I go through and look at it, um, available on 420chief.net. So I stick with the gummies because I like how that helps me in my mindset and in my physical feeling. So my number one is gummies, but I don't take my first one until after 6 p.m. at night. I do still have a vape, and so if the gummy's not quite working the way I want, I can hit the vape right before going to sleep, and that will kind of finalize. But those are the two things that I find work the very best for me. And so about 6 p.m., I'll take the first half gummy, potentially a whole one, just depends on how I feel. I've gotten better now at being able to judge how tired I feel and do I really need to do I need a whole one? Do I need a half one? I can judge that. And so I'll take the first one around 6, then I'll take another one around 7, and then I finish up um, at 8. And I'll either have taken two 10 milligram gummies, or now they have one that's a 20. So I can take one of those, and then I determine the vape at that time. I don't actually consume during the day because I found I don't really need to. Um, Getting good quality sleep has been enough to help roll through my day in the way that it works. But I have had to go without a gummy or anything, and that night I didn't sleep. I think here and there I may have drifted off, but I didn't actually sleep. And so I know it's working, and that has helped to clear my mind. It has helped to ease some of the pain that I do have throughout the course of the day. It's amazing a good night's sleep, how much that will not just mentally help you, but how much it physically helps you. And so that's what I've stuck with. I do want to find maybe some kind of a drink and give that a try and see how that might work. Um, but yeah, I have a very regimented medicinal schedule, and it has worked phenomenal for me.
I've heard those beverages work really well. I've tried a few of them at shows that I've been to, and I know
Mhm.
Bong Master Rob swears by them. I've heard that those are really good before bed. They do have daytime blends of those as well. So
Yeah, and
you
that's kinda my next step is to give that a try.
I don't wanna talk about the names of the medications, but have you got off of medications because you've now been able to get sleep and mental clarity?
So, I am completely off of the one that was for nighttime. I have reduced by over half the ibuprofen, and I don't need the Tylenol for breakthrough pain on a daily basis. And then the other one I cut by 2/3. I still do need to have just a little bit to help the mind during the day, and part of that, to be honest, is probably because I don't consume during the day. But again, it's what works for me. But yeah, brother, I'm completely off of one, completely. Well, I won't say completely because if I really hurt, I will. But for the most part, I'm off of a second, reduced another one by half, and another one by 2/3. All just in this year, all just as I have found what works for me with cannabis. And I do like to point out that not only is it that, but the meditation has been phenomenally helpful.
Do you think you'll get to the point where you can use meditation instead of nighttime gummies for sleep?
Maybe. I'll be honest, I haven't thought about it for sleep. Um, Finally getting sleep, I'm scared to not get the sleep. What I will tell you is I truly believe that cannabis showed me what the feeling and the mental state and all of those things are, which helped to overcome the obstacles that I built in my mind against meditation. I have been able to a few times get those feelings in meditation without cannabis. So, do I think that there's a potential of it lowering down? Yes. Maybe at some point it would go to none. Um, I don't know, but that's honestly not a goal is to stop it at night, but the biggest goal has been to be able to at 11 in the morning say, "Okay, I'm getting frustrated. I feel my anxiety and anger starting to build. I need 10 minutes. I can meditate and then get that feeling started, go through the process, walk out at minute 11, and I'm okay." That's the big goal.
Yeah. I think ultimately mine would be to have mental control over my sleep, pain, and find natural ways of healing so that I don't need anything at all.
Yeah.
Well, Scooter, what would you say your final words of wisdom for veterans and supporters would be?
The first one would be, don't give up, don't stop. I get it. We all, a lot of us get it. It feels lonely and kind of desolate. Um, but reach out, find something or someone that you connect with and just keep pushing forward. Again, the smallest victory in a day, celebrate it. If that means you made it from your bed to the couch in less than 5 minutes, celebrate that victory if you get nothing else done. Remember the days where it was first you crawled, and I was there, crawling from the bed on all fours and trying to get the shower turned on to hot water. So then you could crawl in the shower and let that hot water beat on you until your muscles allowed you to move. So celebrate the small wins, never give up, and find your family. Find that person or persons that you feel comfortable having the conversation with. And if you need them or need anyone, reach out. Please don't give up. Please don't.
Well, Scoot, what are your plans for the next year? I know you've got quite a bit going on. As I'd mentioned Break Stigmas earlier, the nonprofit organization that Sunnyside of Freedom and myself founded. And that's really to use to help break the stigmas of plant medicine, of mental health, of just being able and open, demonstrating to people that's okay to talk about it.
Mm.
It's you just have to find the right people to talk to, the right support, like you had mentioned in your closing words. Um, so with that said, Scooter is a board member of Break Stigmas. So Scooter, do you want to talk about some of the plans for next year without getting too detailed?
Absolutely. Um, First, thank you and Sunny both for the opportunity to be on the board. Um, what I'm most excited about, and this has been something that we've talked about over the course of 6 or 7 months, and that was me becoming comfortable with who I am. right? So everything we just talked about. Um, I really enjoy being a go-to person. I really enjoy supporting. Um, and for the next year, at least for me, my what that looks like is, writing the grants, um, putting out information for others so that they can have an option to come and talk to us. I want to start traveling, brother. You hear it from me all the time, between medical appointments, dental appointments, and a few family things that came up. My travel plans have changed up, but this coming year, I've laid the groundwork already. Now it's just a matter of waiting for a few things to happen that are outside my control, just time slots with a doctor. But when those are done, I am going to start that traveling, and I look forward to getting out and going and meeting more people in person to help in break the stigma of even just having the conversation, to break the stigma of what a veteran is to those who don't know, to talk about the 22 a day and how we got there, who's not even a part of that number, and just open dialogue, have the heart and the mind connect.
And if you want to get to know more about Break Stigmas, please check out our website, www.breakstigmas.com. Check out Sunny's mission, check out my mission, and see what we're doing to help raise awareness and open up forums and platforms where people, real people, can meet and feel comfortable enough to make relationships. Not to mention, Sunny's meetups are amazing, lots of fun, great food, but there's no better place to build camaraderie and resource. So check us out, breakstigmas.com. And if you know of a veteran or you yourself are a veteran with an incredible story of healing through cannabis, or somebody who's overcome trauma, pain, mental health struggles, and found a new path forward, I want to give them a platform to tell their story. I think that with enough stories through healing, especially in our veteran community, it will reach enough people to make a change. So if you know of someone, please let us know. Reach out to me, and I would be glad to potentially have them on the show. And if you know of anyone that it resonates with you or that might struggle, please share out the episode. 420 Chief on YouTube. Get to know some of our veterans, hear their stories, and together I think that we can make a change, you know? And like Scooter said, tell your buddies you love them. When I had Lumpy Chucky on the podcast, he said that. Tell your buddies you love them. And this is one of the most battle hardened Marines I've ever met in my entire life. And that's the answer, you know? As I always say, lead with love, lead with change.